Let's flip it around. If you don't know, now you don't. No. If you don't know, you still don't know. Because the NFL is just, hey, just throw it all up in the air, see where it lands. You have no idea what's going to happen from week to week. But before we get into the details, and before we get into the nitty gritty of the NFL, Mike, I'm going to tell you like a revelation I had yesterday. I'm sitting there watching it. I'm watching Jonathan Taylor do his thing, not one, but 5 touchdowns for the Indianapolis Colts, watching the Tennessee Titans lose, the Buffalo Bills get smoked by Taylor's Colts. And it just really occurred to me as I'm watching Scott Hansen, now we go to a 4-box. We have 4 red zone opportunities here. As I'm watching all that stuff, it just occurred to me, man, I'm having fun. I'm just having fun watching the NFL. And I'm usually a person who goes for the favorite. I like the favorite. I like some type of certainty, some type of definition. The fact that we don't have it this year is actually kind of cool. I don't know, man. Like, I still think the Titans are the best team in the AFC. I stand by that despite the loss to Tennessee. I still believe in the Titans. But if they don't, I'm all right with that. And also, they're the best by what? A smidge, a skosh, a smidgen, a hair, a half inch, whatever phrase you or word you want to use. It's not like the Titans or the leading team in the AFC, even if you don't think it's the Titans. It's not like the team that you think is the number one team is that far ahead of anybody else. I'm enjoying it. And then as an aside, let me tell you, back to Jonathan Taylor, you can say that the running back position has gone down a little bit, but there is nothing in football. You think about it from a fan standpoint, there is nothing in football more frustrating than watching another running back just run all over your team, and your team can't do anything about it. You know that guy's getting the ball, you know they're going to him, and you can't. There's nothing in football. I'm telling you, it's not offsides. It's not your quarterback throwing interceptions in the red zone. It is being run on. And when you're run on consistently, it is the most demoralizing on the field and off the field. This is where fans and those who play the game are in perfect alignment. Because I can't think of a more frustrating thing in football. Just letting somebody just have their way with you. Even more frustrating than an earpiece that suddenly won't stay in. Anyway, what's on your mind?
Do you have it in the right ear?
Yeah. Oh, don't do that.
No, I'm asking. No, I'm serious. Is it in the right ear?
It's in
okay, I don't know.
It's in, how about this? How about this both? It's in the correct ear and it's in the right ear, where it always is. The right side.
Okay. I'm frustrated for you. I'm frustrated for you.
Maybe my ears got smaller, which is really tough to believe because they're already small.
Or it could be your wire could be pulling it to where it's not staying in because it's too far opposite.
Maybe
your neck. So
maybe
and you're buttoning your shirt. Did you just get dressed? Are you buttoning your sleeves down too? Did you just get dressed? Like, did you not know you had a show today? Like, did you not know that we do the show at 3:00?
I took a shower a little later than I usually take a shower. Was
it a long shower?
No.
I got to know. I got to know what's up. I got Mr. Wilkins drive. I got the flu, and I'm driving him to Greenville. I got to know what's up.
No.
Yeah, I got to know. Well, you want to take a second to get your stuff together? You want to get situated? Because honestly, no, you can't. Don't flatter yourself.
But I can button.
No, you can't. No, you're not a good multitasker. No, let me tell you something.
Let's see what you got to say.
And then you won't hear it. And then you won't hear it later. No, but honestly, though, you being discombobulated right now is a microcosm for this NFL season. And all of us who try to observe and analyze it. We don't know which way is up right now. We don't know what we're doing. We're all fumbling. We're all fiddling. We're all trying to figure it out halfway through, okay? Go ahead and get your stuff. Go ahead and fix your earpiece. Get yourself situated. Don't worry. We're just doing some approximation of live television. Don't worry about it. Or honestly, just be like me. See, the problem is, no, you're not. It's still sticking out. The problem is you are all dressed up, looking all professional and whatnot. Just be like me and look like you just rolled out of bed. Yeah, see, you're putting too much effort into it. Just be like me. Like for all you know, I might have slept in this. For you don't know, do you? You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't tie a tie. Got a shirt and whatnot. You don't know.
Don't want to know.
Anyway.
I don't want to know. That's all right. Keep that to yourself.
Anyway, the best team in the AFC didn't play this weekend, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's talk about Jonathan Taylor. All right, that's a tease. Let's talk about Jonathan Taylor for a second. An MVP hasn't won, a running back hasn't won MVP since Adrian Peterson in 12. He's the first player since Adrian Peterson to notch at least 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. And he joined LaDainian Tomlinson, who was a 2006 league MVP, as the only players with 8 consecutive games with 100-plus yards from scrimmage and a rushing touchdown in a single season. He and LaDainian Tomlinson, who won the 06 MVP, as the only players with 8 consecutive games with 100-plus yards from scrimmage and a rushing touchdown. Yesterday was his career high in carries, 32. The week before was his career high with 21. So maybe Frank Reich was just kind of pacing him or saving him to get to this point. He was incredible yesterday with 185 yards rushing. But it was really who he did it against. Michael, this was not somebody feasting on the Lions. This wasn't somebody
this is my favorite one
putting in work. This was against the number 1 ranked defense in DVOA and the 3rd ranked DVOA rushing defense. Or if you're anti-analytics, bottom line is Buffalo was 3rd in rushing yards allowed per game and yards per carry going into this week. And Jonathan Taylor just made fools of him. So
yes, he did.
He ran himself into the MVP race, an award that's traditionally a quarterback's award to lose. And Michael, I can't find a reason not to put him at the forefront of the race when all the quarterbacks who would be in the MVP conversation have either put up clunkers, their teams are struggling, they're struggling individually. I mean, think about the usual suspects. I mean, Kyler Murray's been hurt, and his team's been winning without him. We'll get to that in a second. Aaron Rodgers has been he would probably be your MVP frontrunner. You got the narrative of what they looked like when he was out and Jordan Love played against Kansas City. He was brilliant yesterday, but the Vikings won. So Aaron Rodgers would probably stand as your number 1 quarterback contender. Maybe it's Tom Brady, whose stats for the entire season have been pretty good, although the Bucs have been struggling lately. He gets the Giants tonight in prime time. That might put him right back at the top of the list. I don't think Dak is in it at this point. Obviously, still a lot of time.
Wait.
I don't think Josh Allen's not in it.
Okay.
Lamar Jackson. I mean, so if not Jonathan Taylor, who am I missing?
Did you say Patrick Mahomes? Anybody say Patrick Mahomes? I don't know that.
Mahomes isn't in it. Mahomes isn't in it. Mahomes is not in MVP.
Ooh, look at those numbers. Look again.
What, his turnovers?
Look again.
Sure, I'll look at it. I'll look at his turnovers. Sure.
So look at his turnovers. Look at the full picture. Look at the full picture of Patrick Mahomes and tell me. Just this time last week, we're talking about Patrick Mahomes.
He had a great game last week.
We're doing the same thing.
For a season-long award.
We're doing the same thing to Jonathan Taylor today that we did to Patrick Mahomes last week. Same situation. Patrick Mahomes had 5 touchdowns last week. We're hyping up Patrick Mahomes. This week, Jonathan Taylor has 5 touchdowns, and we're like, hey, he's an MVP. Same thing.
Patrick
Mahomes' season numbers are terrific.
Fix your IFB. Patrick Mahomes could still win MVP. I'm saying right now there is no quarterback who is the runaway, legitimate, MVP leader right now because either they've struggled, they've missed games, or their teams are struggling. So that's why Jonathan Taylor, I can't think of a quarterback that I would put ahead of Jonathan Taylor right now. That's not to say Patrick Mahomes can't still win it. But overall this season, he's been far too up and down, especially by his standards. And it's turned the ball over far too much last week, notwithstanding, to say, oh, Patrick Mahomes is your MVP leader right now. So Jonathan Taylor has a chance to do what running backs. You just said him like you knew him off the top of your head.
I do.
You were talking about looking at his numbers.
I do know him. I do know him. I'm just saying, I just want you to say him and then continue.
Okay.
I want you to say him and then continue with your harangue against Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. Look, right now, what are they, 7-4 now? They're 7-4. I told you, after that loss to Tennessee, they got beat down by Tennessee.
Patrick Mahomes leads the league in passing. He leads the league in passing yardage at 3,200. Okay. He's got 25 touchdowns and 11 picks. He's got a QBR of 57.3 if you're into such things, and a rating of 94.7. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me find the fumbles. Oh, fumbles. He's got 4 lost fumbles, I believe. So that gives him I think he has 15 turnovers on the year. I'll confirm that for you.
Yeah.
So he's giving the ball away far too much to be taking the MVP award and running with it is my only point. There's still plenty of time left. But we were talking about Jonathan Taylor, who, the way he's been running the ball lately, and that game yesterday on the road against Buffalo puts him at the forefront of the MVP conversation, mostly because there's not a quarterback who is a hands-down leader right now.
And I'll tell you what, not
maybe
only that,
Rodgers. Maybe Rodgers.
This is why he's not at the forefront. This is why it's going to be difficult for him to do it. And I love watching him yesterday. And I had a thought as I was looking at all those highlights, the summary of his 5-touchdown day. And the one I said was my favorite. That wasn't the one. It was the one right after, a little short run where he made like 4 guys miss and then gave a nice little stiff arm, a little courtesy stiff arm on the way into the end zone. Just great. But the reason he's going to have a difficult time being the just legitimate front runner is that the NFL MVP often follows the patterns of other sports MVPs. If your team is not in first place, you got to do something extraordinary to get the attention. I mean, like one year, Alex Rodriguez won it in baseball. His team was in last place, but he had an unbelievable season, so he was able to do it. But for the most part, if the Colts finish 9-8 or 10-7, and Tennessee finishes 13-4 or 12-5, okay, it's going to be hard for the MVP to, overcome. Hey, you were a wild card team. You had so you got running back against you. You got wild card team against you, and they probably are going to be a wild card team just because they've already lost the season series to Tennessee, so they lose out on tiebreaker.
Well,
I think that's I think
we'll get to Tennessee.
I think that's going to be difficult.
Well, all right. So when Peterson won it in 2012, the Vikings were 10-6 and in second place. I think you got to have you got to be one of the conference leaders if you're a quarterback.
Yeah.
If it's not a quarterback, if you're a running back, 2,000 yards typically gets it. Right now, he's not on pace for 2,000 yards, but that's not to suggest that he can't threaten it. And if he carries them into the postseason picture, he'll have the narrative on his side. But if you don't mind, I'd like to broaden it out a little bit and look at that postseason picture and talk about 2 teams that lost yesterday, if I may. One is Buffalo, who I remember asking you is who have they beaten? Because they beat a struggling Kansas City team. I believe that's the only win that they have this year against a team with a winning record. Buffalo. They're among the most penalized teams in the league. They don't run the ball especially well.
Real problems.
Former MVP candidate Josh Allen is struggling when it comes to his decision making. So they got issues. Buffalo does. But then go back to something you said a moment ago. Tennessee, who we both liked, especially after they had that statement win in primetime against the Rams. But I remember telling you, Michael, I remember saying, I don't know if it's sustainable. I don't know if they're the best team or they're just winning. They're just finding ways to win. And don't get me wrong, there's a talent in finding ways to win. They're a tough team, but at a certain point playing, I don't know what the number is now, but it was 80-something guys they played this year. All right, I don't know what it's up to at this point. But playing all the guys that they played already, losing Derrick Henry, who is the best running back in the league when he's playing, and averaging, prior to yesterday, I told you, they were averaging 2.5 yards a carry. They weren't running the ball very well. And you were like, oh, no, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're the best team in the AFC. And a minute ago, you said you still feel that way.
Yes.
Why?
Yes, I do. Yes, Yes, I do. Look, because I'm not going to get caught up in losing to a bad team. Now, keep in mind, they've lost to 2 bad teams this year. They've lost to arguably the 2 worst teams in the AFC. They lost to the Jets in overtime, and then they lost to the Texans at the crib. But that's not, just because you lose to bad teams doesn't mean that you are not a good team, and it doesn't mean you can't win a championship. A team that you covered, I think the last team that you covered, the 2004 Patriots, you covered the 04 Patriots, or 03. But the 04 Patriots, 14-2, back-to-back 14-2 seasons. I remember them losing a Monday night game to a bad Dolphins team. It happens. And so, especially a team in your division, it's hard for even great teams to sweep their division. I just like what Tennessee represents from top to bottom, and that didn't change yesterday. What really changed for the Texans, and they might have a win or 2 more. I'm not going crazy here, but they might have 1 or 2 more wins if they'd had Tyrod Taylor all season long. Their season changed. Tyrod Taylor starts off at the beginning of the season. Houston was competitive. They had Taylor then. They still had Mark Ingram. They still felt like they were the little engine that could. And then Taylor gets hurt. Ingram gets traded. Lots of things happen. They get a little discouraged by Deshaun Watson's situation. Everything happened, and they just tanked. But if Tyrod Taylor had been there all season, we're not talking about an automatic, easy, this is a joke franchise kind of win. So I'm all right with Tennessee. They had a 6-game winning streak. They've put a lot of good things on tape already for me to know who they are. I don't question.
But there's one guy
who they are.
No, but the they. We got to focus on the they, Michael. And I'm a fan of how the Titans do things. I'm a fan of that organization. I'm a fan of the way they play. But they are missing. If Derrick Henry's still playing, he might be at the forefront of the MVP conversation. Now, he may come back before it's all said and done, but he's not playing. And they're a different offense without him. I don't know why they don't give Deontay Foreman the ball more, but nonetheless, they insist on this committee approach with Adrian Peterson. And they're not running the ball with the same level of effectiveness, nowhere near the same level of effectiveness. In fact, they're awful at running the ball, and therefore Ryan Tannehill is having to carry a disproportionate load on offense than he's accustomed to. And I'm not talking about, everybody has off days. Michael, nowhere this season, at no point in the season was it any more evident than this week when we had 4 first-place teams lose. Buffalo, Tennessee, Dallas, and Green Bay. And over the past 3 weeks, we've had division-leading teams losing 11 games to opponents who did not have a winning record. Over the past 3 weeks, we've had 11 losses by division-leading teams to losing teams. So that old phrase that you and I both know well, the other guys get paid too. So I don't know if there are upsets or surprises as much in the NFL as we like to think they are. You said off the top that this season more than ever we don't have a handle on it. Maybe we never really had a handle on it. You just pointed out 04, the 14-2 Patriots losing on Monday Night Football to the Dolphins. Maybe we have less of a handle on it than usual. But I don't know if at this point we should be surprised by anybody beating anybody else in a league full of professional football players who get paid, whose jobs are on the line every Sunday. It's not any given Sunday, it's every given Sunday. This is what this sport has always been for the most part. Having said that, the point I just want to make on Tennessee is it's not that I'm overreacting to them losing to a competitive Texans team. And even in their losses, more often than not, they've shown some fight. I'm not even talking about the law. I'm talking about the warning signs that we've seen for several weeks from Tennessee that made me wonder before yesterday whether or not their winning streak was based on something that's sustainable or they were just surviving.
Like
Far be it from me.
Like what? Warning signs like what?
What are you talking about? I just told you.
Sign.
What? They were averaging 2 yards a carry coming into this last week's game.
So what? It's a passing league. It's a passing league. It's a passing league. So what?
So what is it leads to Ryan Tannehill having to carry the offense and throwing 4 interceptions, which he's never done in Tennessee. I don't know if he ever threw more than 2 in Tennessee, but they don't have the same identity without Derrick Henry. That's a warning sign. And they weren't beating the brakes. They didn't beat the brakes off the Saints the week before. So they were on a winning streak, but they were winning close games. And hey, style points don't matter in this league.
It's a skill.
But to say that they're the best team in the AFC, they're number one right now. But the best team in the AFC, not sure.